what comes first is context is king. So if context is king, we must embrace it, appreciate it, and explore it with wonderment. Problems are nature's way of wrapping up gifts to you. How will nature give gifts? It will give you problem. If you can unwrap, unravel, then you have a solution and you have a relevance. So embrace the context well.
Welcome to another episode of the peopleHum interview series. I'm Vanessa Rose, and let's begin with a quick introduction of peopleHum. peopleHum is an end-to-end, one-view integrated human capital management automation platform, the winner of the 2019 Global Cody Award for HCM that is specifically built for crafted employee experiences and the future of work. We run the peopleHum blog and the video channel, which receives upwards of 200,000 visitors a year, and publish around 2 interviews with well-known names globally every month. And now for our guest, Himanshu Saxena is among the world's top 100 Marshall Goldsmith coaches. He's the founder and CEO of Center of Strategic Mindset, a thought leadership and consulting organization focused on advising boards in strategy, people, and risk. He's a C-suite executive coach who works with promoters, boards, CXOs, and top leaders in the disciplines of managing strategy, driving execution, implementing a balanced scorecard, and developing top leadership. In the past, he has been the advisor and coach in residence with 2 leading pharma businesses. Welcome, Himanshu. We are thrilled to have you.
Thank you, Vanessa. It's a pleasure to be here with you on the show.
So, the first question I had for you, Himanshu, was could you tell us a little bit about your work at the Center of Strategic Mindset?
I founded Center of Strategic Mindset with a single mission to groom strategic minds who can deliver bold business impact. And COSM is a very boutique consulting organization with 6 services, primarily in the area of strategy and culture, purpose and transformation, leadership development, executive coaching, design thinking and innovation, and lastly, mindfulness and well-being. I've had 6 different careers in my life, starting as a geologist, military, United Nations, consulting, corporations, and entrepreneur. And as a result, I discovered that change is my natural course and renewal is my constant pursuit. I consider myself a student of life and teacher of experience, Vanessa. That's in brief about the work that I do or the ideology and philosophy which I'm part of. In all these careers that I've had, 3 things really stood common that always been associated with formulating strategy, developing, grooming leaders, and transforming culture and leading change.
So you had a lot of experience in this, and you have a lot of leaders worldwide. So what was the most common or the biggest pain that you have helped to solve?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and it's difficult to pinpoint one. But some of the most common pain points and aspirations that I've handled is to help leaders find their purpose, creating their moonshot vision, making them think strategically and execute boldly, preparing them to handle bigger scope, scale, and complexity. Very important that leaders are given the structured mentoring and developing the mindset of scale. How do we think big? You know how in this crisis, many of the past business models are becoming obsolete. So helping them reinvent their business model and pivot to a new reality. Also, one of the very interesting things that I do is to help them overcome their fans. And fans, I'll explain what does it mean. So fears, assumptions, notions, and self-limiting beliefs. All of us have it. And this is something we created that if we can help people deal with their fans, they can go and create a bigger reality. In a nutshell, developing their ability to think clearly, choose precisely, and act decisively. So these are some of the most common pain points that I routinely dabble and deal with while working with leaders of big organizations.
Thanks seems like a really interesting concept. Since you specifically spoke about the pandemic situation, what does it take to bring out an enormous change in organizational cultures, especially now?
Bringing a change in a crisis situation is far easier than normal times. Where life is good, success is visible, and steady, things are going smooth, and resistance is very high. But in crisis situation, receptivity is very high because the threat which is looming over our head is really real. It's like those burning platform scenarios where one has got to prepare fast, jump, otherwise he has the chance of perishing. So faster the pace of disruption, higher is the receptivity to experiment for renewal. Now, bringing a cultural change in the organization is really tough. 90% of the people are staring at leadership with those quizzical looks. Why change? Where everything is working fine and appearing normal, what's the need for change? It is hard to make people see the damage that the current culture may be doing. It's like those icebergs which are melting from beneath, but you can't see them. No one is able to see them disappearing. So, bringing enormous change in culture, to my mind, calls for a couple of things which I have personally experienced. The first is guts and vision. I often say no guts, no glory. No vision, no following. If you don't have guts, you will not achieve glory. You don't have a vision, there will not be a following. And guts not for bulldozing the change, but guts for facing the resistance, turning it into advocacy. A well-painted picture of future in the form of a vision is a minimal expectation people have from us, even starting the journey of change. They just want to see how will this change actually change their lives and in what ways. What is the cost of the change? What's the value of the change that they will get out of that? So the first one is guts and vision. The second is authenticity and purpose. People really want to know and see how invested we are in the journey and what is our purpose. They want to know and see what's wrong with current culture and what will the new culture bring. So authenticity and purpose is the second element. The third, any change initiative and especially culture, strategy and communication both are needed. A very robust strategy and very sound and simple communication. Communication which can engage the hearts of people. Change is not through logic, it is through the heart. The fourth element, which I remember from my experiences in the military and United Nations, is empathy and as inspiration. See, over the years, people are who are being part of an organization, they have built the walls of comfort, cocoons of safety, and shelters of logic. You have to get them out of that cave. You got to show them that little sunshine is outside, come and enjoy. Now, if you don't touch their heart, they are not going to come out of that cave. So empathy and inspiration is the fourth thing which really works in cultural transformation. My second last piece is role modeling. People want to know or ask, why me? Why should change begin with me? But this is the question everybody is asking, all the employees. So they are looking for some role models who says, okay, I'm the one who's walking alone and you can join me later on. When they see you succeeding, that's where followership begins. And that's how it happened in Dandi March in Gandhi. He was the one who started walking with few people and then hundreds of people joined. And last, Vanessa, is resilience and patience. See, cultural adaptations do not happen overnight. These are not just skirmishes and few battles. They are long, protracted wars where there'll be a tactical victory, a temporary withdrawal, a battle of attrition, and gradual expansion of territory and surprises in the form of ambushes. So if you are prepared to face them all with all your workarounds, eventually you will win the war. But that will require loads of resilience and tons of patience. So these are some of the experience from my six cultural transformation that I have been part of or I've led. Vanessa.
That's a wonderful answer. Culture is normally seen as one component, but it actually is it's like a mixture of all these small things that matter so much.
And mixture in the right combination.
Yeah. So culture eats strategy for breakfast. So do you think this applies to all organizations of today?
all the time and all the organizations. This is a timeless factor. It applies to all the organizations, no matter how robust is your strategy. If your culture is not aligned, strategy will not yield any major results or usually will fall short of its promise. In my conversations with C-suite, I often ask this question between strategy and culture, and which one is a driving factor and which one is a guiding factor. Yeah. If you can look at this slide, so on one side, we have strategy, priorities, goals, objectives, measures, and activities. On the other side, we have this culture, values, assumptions, beliefs, practice, and behavior. I invariably ask, okay, which one is a guiding factor and which one is a driving factor? And most C-suite leaders, they choose strategy as the driving factor and culture is the guiding factor. But the truth is different. It is strategy which does the guiding part, but you need culture to drive your results. If you're driven a car, there is a clutch and there's an accelerator. So strategy is like the clutch, but culture is like a accelerator which drives transformation. So I invariably enjoy having this quiz and get the answers in a different way. And then people say, oh, I wish we had thought like that. So this is the part about how culture eats strategy for breakfast is really relevant. And a couple of other thoughts which I have is they think that it is a culture which is a driving factor later on, and then they put in the right amount of efforts, intensity, role modeling to make the culture not eat this strategy. But there are organizations who are really realizing that one of the large technology organizations that I'm working with is 200 leaders are undergoing purpose transformation and purpose discovery. They said it's very important for us to enable each employee figure out its purpose and then relate to the organizational purpose. Now look at the amount of effort, and it's a massive, one of the top 10 organizations. So there are organizations who are realizing that without culture, it's not as an afterthought, but as a parallel process, we can drive cultural transformation.
Absolutely. So now speaking about innovation. So how do you help organizations to maintain that factor of innovation for growth?
So the question that you asked is an all-time popular question. I think the world is constantly focused on how do we innovate and how do we innovate. One of the leading innovation thinkers and a personal friend, his name is Professor Vijay Govindarajan. We call him VG at Tuck School of Business. He often says, strategy is about leadership and future. Leadership and future is about innovation. Hence, strategy equals innovation. A very nice equation, strategy equals innovation. Now, I particularly like this equation. In fact, I love it because if there is no innovation, there is no strategy either. I and my team, working with different organizations, approach this factor of innovation in 3 steps. First, we try and show them that your iceberg is melting. The iceberg on which you are resting is melting hard and fast. Are you aware of that? Then we also try and shift their vision to another giant healthy iceberg and show them a possibility. Look, with little effort and little disruptive thinking, you could be on that iceberg, which will give you greater sustainability and growth. And that iceberg is waiting to be inhabited. But this is something most organizations are not able to see themselves, and they need external help. This is where COSM, myself, and my team come and help them. The second piece is we help organizations identify their dominant logics. Now, what are dominant logics are? Dominant logics are those orthodoxies, those untested beliefs, those assumptions, which are actually coming in their way of seeing the future, seeing the reality. It's like they are closing their eyes to the future and having their vision blurred. These dominant logics actually act like cataract. They blur their vision. So we help them remove the cataract through a very structured process, which we call it retooling of mindset. There is a way we are thinking now, and how could we change our thinking in a different way? So bring our tools, ideas, concept, and make people think differently. The third is we use design thinking to invoke the lens of empathy towards those big invisible problems that hold the seed for growth, if solved. So our approach to innovation while working with the organizations at a metaphorical level is a three-step process. One, make organizations see the iceberg that is melting and show them there's another iceberg where they can move. Second is triggering the retooling of mindset. Third is invoke the lens of empathy and appreciation of context. But all that in a structured manner. See, one of the things which we are very proud about is make these changes, transformation absolutely simple. If it's too complicated process, people will lose their heart. And I'm a personal believer that most of the things can be achieved in a structured manner. So this is how we approach innovation. See, innovation first is in mind, then it leads to skills, then it leads to behavior, and then comes process. Technology is just an enabler. Do you know what happens? We often think that technology is an innovation. Yes, but how are we using and leveraging technology to change lives of people and our context? That's where the innovation lies.
The human is still at this, at the core of everything.
Yeah.
And so, do you think meditation and mindfulness can be used for improving employee productivity?
So firstly, in last 5-6 years, mindfulness really becoming a hot cake is one of the most sellable and most lucrative proposition being talked about. So much so that most people are claiming to be a mindfulness practitioner, organizations are talking about it. So clearly, as the word has progressed and evolved, would you agree that more distractions have come in our life? So how do we deal with those distractions? Suddenly, mindfulness, which used to be an ancient practice, is now being packaged and repackaged and sold and kind of offered to the individuals and organizations. Now, I'm not here to build a business case for mindfulness, but if we have to get the best out of those 24 hours that we have, we must look at each and every moment. The power of that moment, the promise of that moment, the potential of that moment, and the performance of that moment. If we can harness the peak power, promise, potential, and performance in that moment, aren't we not going to be more productive? And we can only realize this equation truly if we add the fifth P, which I call it the pause. Pause is something that brings that required mindfulness. See, in our lives, pause is as important as the rush. But what we normally choose? We choose rush. It gives a heightened sense of being productive, active, but actually it's just a set of activities. And that's what we subject ourselves to. So mindfulness is all about appreciating, harnessing, and leveraging the power of now. There's a book written by Eckhart Tolle. It's a fantastic book where he talks about how can we realize the peak power of now. Future is nothing but a series of now moments. Now, another now, another now. What happens that we are thinking of the future, we are regretting about past, but we are missing out the most important element, which is now. Mind is a monkey full of chatter, full of mental chatter, and there are lots of distractions. Distractions are the prime enemy of productivity. Distractions also induce procrastination, escaping from now, need to be perfect and not starting. And all this takes a toll on productivity. We often have this hyper sense or sense of hyperactivity, but very little productivity. It's mainly because we have lost our mindfulness or are in the pursuit of losing. So mindfulness certainly helps in regaining the power of moment, which brings clarity about our choices, that helps in decision making, which leads to action and desired results. So your question that does mindfulness meditation helps, it definitely helps. And we do a lot of retreats and offsites with the organization where we try and teach people to learn about mindfulness in a very simple manner. So it does not require too much of kind of complicated process. Very simple technique is, when something happens to us and we want to regain, where are we? So there are a couple of questions one can practice. One, what is happening around me? Question number two, what is happening to me? Question number three, am I a victim of my feelings and thoughts? Do they have control over me, or can I have the control over those thoughts and feelings? Are those thoughts and feelings taking me to the negative zone, or can I do something about and make a choice towards positive zone? So it is these kind of techniques that can help people regain mindfulness. One of the things, we all undergo those emotional upheavals. Yes or no? So when someone says something nasty, so imagine if you have an emotional elevator, it will go down. Something really nasty, the elevator goes to the basement. Someone says nice thing, our elevator goes up. Now imagine we have this elevator in our heart, but the control of that elevator we are given to somebody else. So how do we deal with that? How do we become mindful in this situation? Again, 5 questions. So every time something happens, one can ask self, why am I feeling this way? Question number 2, where is this feeling coming from? Question number 3, how feeling this way is helping me? Question number 4, how long do I wish to feel this way? The moment you think how long, you get a tangible metric, 3 minutes, 3 seconds, 3 hours, 3 days. And finally, don't I have something big, meaningful, and creative in my life rather than wasting time on this thought? So these 5 questions are like those oxygen masks which drop from the airline when there's a low pressure area. So these are some of the simple techniques that employees can regain their productivity.
This is such a deep answer. So I
Thank you.
think, during the very interesting concept you spoke about was about the pause. And I think during lockdown now, people are starting to realize it too.
You rightly said, for first 15 days, people were really struggling that how are they going to manage this time? Or they tended to fill up with lots of activities. So pause is a very important aspect of mindfulness.
So Himanshu, coming to our last question, do you have any sound bites you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah. So firstly, thank you for having me share these thoughts. I would love to share a few thoughts which are come from my life experience and the work that I have done. They're not in any particular order, but what comes first is context is king. So if context is king, we must embrace it, appreciate it, and explore it with wonderment. Problems are nature's way of wrapping up gifts to you. How will nature give gifts? It will give you problem. If you can unwrap, unravel, then you have a solution and you have a relevance. So embrace the context well. The next is one of the best ways to deal with the context is to be authentic and have a purpose and learn in a structured manner. That way we'll all have a beginner's mindset. Make an attempt to find purpose and discover it in a structured way. Being authentic is very important. So as this disruption was happening, employees were looking at the leaders. Tell us what the truth is. Tell us what you know. Tell us what you don't know. and tell us how soon can you get to know and tell us. So this is where those leaders who are authentic, they really scored well with their teams and organization. Third point is, in this world of experts and expertise, what is hugely missing is a beginner's mindset. Everybody is an expert, but the rules of the new game are yet to be written. So what will come handy, a beginner's mindset or an expert mindset? In fact, this universe also got created with a beginner's mindset. So nurture and retain that beginner's mindset which we all were gifted with. One of my most common saying to people is learning first, relevance later. Do not question how what I'm going to learn now will come handy in future. But trust me, when the future unfolds, you have just the right skill to deal with that. But people first question, oh, how is this going to help me? And they never learn. Next is be insanely curious. One of my quotes is, when curiosity overcomes the concern, you are ready to create the future. And one of the most common languages or the words vocabulary that millennials use is cool, isn't it? So what does cool stand for me? So C stands for curiosity. O stands for openness and being open. The second O stands for observation, keen sense of observation. And L is uninhibited learning. So if we really want to be cool, it's not a bad acronym to do that. The next one is, let us frequently ask ourselves, are we programmed for success, or are we also trained to handle failures? Now you would appreciate and agree that all our schooling, graduation, post-graduation, master's program, everything is designed to program us for success. But life is different. If you go through that scheduling and learning of the first failure, you're not trained for handling failures. That's where we'll struggle. So both are needed, program for success and train for failure. The next one is, leadership is the space that we operate, leadership strategy and culture. So leadership is a journey where challenges are our terrain. Impact is our conquest. So embrace the challenges, not run away from that. This pandemic, what we are going through is really tough times. And what will really help us is an equation which I often use. Routine plus rituals create the rhythm. So we need to find the right routine, rituals that will help us create the rhythm. The second last aspect on this is, everyone is more concerned about future than now. Not a bad thing. We need to have a bifocal vision. But what we are doing is that constantly thinking about that, we are wasting now. And one of the best ways to tackle the concern about future is to practice, preserve, conserve, and reserve. So what to preserve? Preserve our health, most important at this point of time, mental, physical. Conserve our vigor and energy. And lastly, reserve your assets, whatever we have, for a future leverage. And last but not the least is, the kind of words that we choose to describe ourselves will create our actual world. So your words create the world. So let's choose them wisely. So these are some of the things which come from my experiences, work and life that I face, Vanessa.
Those are some really wonderful insights shared, Himanshu. I love the acronyms and the equations.
I hope that these things will serve your audience well and community that you are serving very well, Vanessa.
Yeah, definitely. I had a great time speaking to you, Himanshu. I'm sure our audience is going to love this too.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thank you for having me on your show.
It was a pleasure.